The 14th of August, 2025, 2 a.m. The North Pacific looks like glass under a moonless sky, the kind of darkness that swallows sound and distance. Far offshore, 30 low-signature amphibious assault ships advance in a staggered line, wakes barely visible. Engines hum in a muted register meant to mislead sonar, satellites, and human nerves alike. Each hull carries a brutal arithmetic of war. 4 55-ton main battle tanks chained to the deck, 2 armored personnel carriers lashed beside them, and a strike detachment of 17 naval infantry armed to the teeth. In total, the flotilla delivers 120 tanks, 60 APCs, 500 elite Marines, and over 6,000 tons of armored steel aimed at American shores. Their objective is not a fortress but a scene. A small fishing town with fewer than 3,800 residents and a single outdated coastal radar guarding hundreds of miles of shoreline. Seize it, fortify it, turn it into a forward base, and use that foothold to push deeper inland. That is the plan. Bold, precise, and on paper invisible. Communications run through 256-bit military encryption. Emission control is absolute. The formation imitates scattered cargo traffic, slipping through commercial lanes and masking intent with the ordinary clutter of ocean trade. On the lead ship, officers trace landing diagrams under red light, confident that surprise belongs to them and them alone. They are certain the United States is blind tonight. Their screens show an empty ocean. Their radars return only wind, waves, and meaningless dots. Confidence hardens into belief, and belief into momentum. Every minute brings them closer to the beach, to concrete piers, to warehouses that will become barracks by dawn. But at 65,000 feet, a stealth UAV has already drawn a box around their fate. Silent, high, and cold, it watches the formation breathe heat signatures, deck movements, the metallic outlines of tanks and launch canisters. Every 5 seconds, it whispers a complete picture to U.S. Naval Command. Headings, speeds, spacing, weaknesses. On land, coast-based missile batteries are powered and quiet. Beneath the surface, a Virginia-class attack submarine slides into an intercept track, running deep and dark. Higher still, armed drones circle at altitude, wide arcs patiently tightening. The ocean is an empty stage to the invaders. To America, it's a grid measured, mapped, and waiting. The trap is set. The only question left is timing. Strike now or wait for the perfect kill box to close. The clock is already counting down. From the moment the stealth UAV locked onto the Iranian flotilla, the United States Navy began to weave an invisible cage. The data stream was relentless. Every 5 seconds, precise telemetry, infrared profiles, and radar shadows poured into the Pacific Fleet's operations center. 14 massive screens lit the command room, each tracing the enemy's course with mathematical certainty. In San Diego, Operation Black Tide was triggered, a rapid elimination doctrine designed specifically for amphibious invasions. The order was simple, ruthless, and patient. Do not strike yet. Let the invaders march willingly into the jaws prepared for them. The battlefield was not the Oregon shoreline, but a pre-drawn kill box 2 nautical miles wide, 35 miles long. It was an invisible corridor in the ocean, where overlapping layers of American firepower could converge with devastating precision. Once the enemy entered, no ship would escape. 3 strike components silently unfolded. Above, 80-25 Stingray Drive 1s orbited at 40,000 feet, each armed with 2 500-pound precision-guided bombs. Collectively, they carried 80,000 pounds of high explosives, an arsenal heavy enough to erase a fleet. Below, the USS North Dakota, a Virginia-class attack submarine, prowled at 820 feet. Armed with 38 heavyweight torpedoes and 12 Tomahawk cruise missiles, it maneuvered unseen, its sonar painting the ocean like a hunter sniffing prey. Onshore, 2 concealed missile batteries primed 24 RGM-84 Harpoons, each warhead capable of splitting a warship in half. Their launchers sat hidden in coastal bunkers, barrels angled toward the black horizon. Iranian commanders remained blind, certain their deception worked. Their ships still crawled at 14 knots, oblivious that every wake, Every engine, heat plume, every tank cooling system had already been tagged and cataloged. Their encrypted channels buzzed with confidence, charts marked with landing times down to the minute. But in American command centers, the tone was different. Clinical, precise, and cold. A countdown ticked away, predicting the moment the flotilla would drift into the kill box. 27 minutes. No one shouted, no one rushed. The silence of professionals hung heavy warriors who knew that patience multiplies destruction. The noose tightened with every passing mile. To the Iranians, the Pacific was still theirs to cross. To the Americans, it had already become a graveyard waiting to be sealed. And when the first strike came, it would not be a warning. It would be an erasure. 2:42 a.m. The Iranian formation, still cloaked in self-assurance, crossed an invisible boundary etched into the ocean by American planners. From that second forward, time would not be measured in minutes but in heartbeats. At 2 hours 42 minutes and 7 seconds, a single burst of encrypted commands rippled through the sky. 80 MQ-25 Stingray UAVs, each circling silently at 40,000 feet, dipped into attack vectors. Their AAQ-40 targeting systems had been locked onto pre-assigned hulls for hours. Now, like predators released from a leash, they struck. At 2 hours 42 minutes and 15 seconds, the first wave of bombs fell. 160 GBU, 53B small-diameter bombs streaked downward at Mach 1.5, each carrying 250 pounds of high explosives, engineered to pierce armor before igniting secondary fuel stores. In just under 5 seconds, 10 of the Iranian lead ships vanished in sheets of flame. One vessel erupted so violently that 4 onboard tanks cooked off in a chain detonation, blasting a fireball 200 feet into the air. Another split its deck wide open, hurling armored vehicles into the sea like toys. Shockwaves rippled outward, tossing men overboard, tearing formation lines apart. The Iranians panicked. Their radar screens, blank only moments earlier, now screamed with interference. Officers shouted overlapping commands into encrypted channels, but the network buckled under the weight of distress calls. Ships swerved to avoid flaming wrecks, colliding with each other in the chaos. That was the moment the second wave hit. Another 160 bombs slammed into the rear and center columns, striking ammunition stores, shredding radar dishes, and igniting diesel reserves. A rain of steel and fire turned the ocean's surface into a boiling cauldron. Less than 50 seconds after the first bomb fell, 14 ships were sinking or ablaze. Over 180 Iranian Marines were already dead, dozens more trapped in collapsing hulls. But the ocean had more fangs to bear. Beneath the waves, the USS North Dakota adjusted its firing solution. At 11.8 nautical miles, it loosed 4 Monarch 48 Mod 7 heavyweight torpedoes. Each thundered forward at 55 knots, guided by sonar, designed to detonate beneath a ship's keel, the breaking point of structural integrity. When they struck, the effect was biblical. One Iranian transport snapped in half, both sections plunging beneath the surface in less than 90 seconds. Another keeled over violently as a torpedo tore open its underbelly, dragging hundreds of tons of steel into the black abyss. The underwater shockwaves exceeded 500 psi, crushing compartments, silencing engines, and extinguishing lives in the dark. Above, UAVs continued their deadly ballet. Their AI-assisted targeting systems reassigned bombs to any ship still afloat, ensuring no vessel was spared. Flames lit the night sky, painting the Pacific with an apocalyptic glow. To the trapped Iranian Marines, it must have felt like the sea itself had turned against them, fire raining from above, explosions roaring below, escape routes collapsing on every side. In less than 2 minutes, the invisible invasion force had been ripped open. Their surprise was gone. Their formation was gone. And soon, their fleet would be gone as well. By 2:44 a.m., what had once been a proud Iranian strike force was reduced to burning fragments scattered across the Pacific. Yet even in chaos, instinct drove the surviving captains to run. Engines roared to maximum thrust as the remnants of the fleet turned westward, desperate to claw their way back into the night. But retreat was impossible. They were already inside the range of America's coastal missile batteries, 2 hidden installations buried along Oregon's cliffs. their launch tubes camouflaged beneath reinforced hatches. At 2 hours 45 minutes and 0 seconds, the order came, fire all tubes. 6 seconds later, 24 Harpoon Block E-plus anti-ship missiles tore into the air. Each was 15 feet long, weighing 1,523 pounds, and carrying a 488-pound warhead. Skimming just 15 feet above the ocean, they raced toward their prey at nearly Mach 0.9, invisible to radar until the final seconds of terminal climb. The first salvo hit 3 retreating ships almost simultaneously. One vessel erupted in a white flash as its ammunition hold 20,000 rounds of ordnance detonated in a chain of explosions. Another missile pierced the engine room of a tank carrier, igniting 10,000 gallons of diesel fuel into a rolling inferno that lit the horizon for miles. And then, from beneath, the USS North Dakota struck again. Its fire control system, linked directly to the drone network, fired 2 Tomahawk Block 5 cruise missiles. Flying low, barely 100 feet above the waves, they sliced through the smoke screen the Iranians tried to hide behind. Each carried a 1,000-pound penetrating warhead, engineered to punch through decks before igniting inside the hull. One target broke in 2, another capsized in under 4 minutes. Above, the Stingray drones had not finished their dance. Switching loadouts, 20 surviving UAVs armed with AGM-114R Hellfire missiles dove onto stragglers. Lifeboats, small landing craft, and makeshift rafts carrying desperate Marines became crosshairs for precision strikes. Each missile, only 100 pounds, carried a shaped charge powerful enough to tear open armored hulls or obliterate wooden boats with a single flash. For the Iranians, survival no longer meant victory. It meant breath. Marines jumped into burning seas, swimming through oil slicks as steel rained around them. Some attempted to beach their ships on shallow sandbars, only to be engulfed by follow-up strikes before their keels scraped the seabed. By 2:48 a.m., the last semblance of order vanished. Of the original 30 amphibious ships, 26 were destroyed at sea, 4 crippled beyond repair and later sunk. Over 300 Iranian Marines lay dead, many more wounded, burned, or drowning in the cold black water. All 120 tanks, 60 APCs, and hundreds of tons of ammunition slipped into the depths. The kill ratio was absolute. 100% of the invading force eliminated. American casualties? None. The ocean. Moments before a battlefield of roaring engines and desperate commands, returned to silence broken only by the hiss of sinking metal, the crackle of flames on the water's surface, and the low thrum of American engines pulling away. In just under 6 minutes, what Tehran had hailed as a masterstroke of surprise had been reduced to wreckage. The Pacific did not grant them conquest. It gave them a grave. By 3:10 a.m., the battle was over. The once proud Iranian invasion fleet had been reduced to twisted metal, drifting wreckage, and oil fires stretching for miles across the Pacific. The air reeked of diesel and cordite, a haunting reminder of what happens when arrogance collides with American firepower. U.S. Navy recovery teams, https://www.youtube.com/watch $V=XZA6YLNGBYI and T=565 second swept the waters. They pulled 200 Iranian survivors from the 52-degree waters, many trembling from hypothermia, burns, or shrapnel wounds. Among them were 3 senior Iranian naval officers clutching encrypted tablets. Within 36 hours, American cyber units cracked their codes, uncovering plans for 2 additional amphibious assaults, plans now rendered useless before they could even begin. The scale of the defeat was staggering. 30 amphibious assault ships destroyed or sunk, 120 tanks and 60 APCs lost forever beneath the waves, over 6,000 tons of armored steel and hundreds of tons of munitions scattered across the seabed, more than 300 Iranian Marines killed. By contrast, the United States suffered no combat losses. Not a single American sailor, pilot, or Marine died that night. When satellite imagery of the battle zone was released 18 hours later, the world reeled. Dozens of oil slicks, some stretching 5 nautical miles, stained the ocean black. Debris fields covered 40 square miles. Commentators called it the most decisive naval interception since the Falklands War. In Tehran, shock turned to silence. The government scrambled for answers, its credibility fractured by the sudden loss of an entire strike force. The myth of stealth fleets and encrypted radios as guarantees of surprise had been obliterated. Military planners worldwide took note. If this could happen to Iran, it could happen to anyone. For the United States, the message was deliberate. Any hostile power attempting to breach its shores would face not attrition, not stalemate, but absolute erasure. Operation Black Tide was not just a battle, it was a doctrine, demonstrated in front of the world with ruthless clarity. Recruitment into the U.S. Navy spiked 47% in the following days. Analysts across Asia and Europe began rethinking amphibious warfare doctrines. The kill box concept, once a closely guarded American tactic, was now carved into military history. Yet behind the numbers and wreckage lay a deeper truth. Victory did not come from weapons alone, but from discipline, patience, to wait until the enemy was exactly where they needed to be. Precision to strike with overwhelming force at the perfect moment. And unity. Air, sea, and land assets woven into a single strike that lasted less than 6 minutes. The sea eventually returned to silence. But it was not the silence of peace. It was deterrence, an iron warning written in fire and steel that America's vigilance does not sleep. And if history teaches us anything, it is this: arrogance can blind, but patience can kill. So what do you think? If you were in command, would you have struck early or waited for the perfect moment as the Americans did? Comment with 1 if you would strike immediately, or 9 if you'd wait for the kill box to close.